Right, I'm here. How you doing? Oh, Jesus. I'm here, I said. I'm here. Calm down. Calm down. Yes, thank you, please, ladies and gentlemen. Sorry for being a bit late today. It's only the second time, by the way, it's happened to me in 5 and a bit years. Only the second time. I've had a mad old day. Could have cried off, of course, but I don't want to do that. How you doing? Welcome to the Richie Allen Show. It's just after 15 minutes past 5, quarter past 5, for Tuesday, the 3rd of December 2019. I am Richie Allen. I am live. And we've got some interesting things to talk about in the next hour or thereabouts. Thanks for joining me. Let's get on with it.
Asking the questions mainstream journalists will never ask. This is your Richie Allen Show on richieallen.co.uk, Fab Radio 2 in Manchester, and triggerwarning.tv. It's the Richie Allen Show. Broadcasting live on richieallen.co.uk and multiple platforms around the world. And now, here's your host, Richie Allen.
Thanks very much, Patricia. I am worth the wait, of course. Of course I am. Forget modesty. No more modesty anymore. We're in the age of Donald Trump. This is the age of Donald. This is Donald's time. Let's be more like Donald. I am the greatest. I'm the greatest there's ever been. Oh, Jesus. Yeah, it's been a mad day. I said this morning. I had a few things to do. And I said this morning I mightn't get on today. And I said I mightn't have guests. I did have guests booked in. What I've done is reschedule them for the next couple of days. But I'm glad I got on. I spent the last couple of hours frantically editing and getting something together for you. Because I love you. That's what it's all about, you see. Do you appreciate me, do you? Do you? You better do. Hi to Natalie. Hi to Patricia, I mentioned, to William. I would say I was in hair and makeup for a bit longer than usual, but I don't have any hair. And the greatest makeup artist on planet Earth couldn't make this kisser kissable, if you know what I'm saying. Like, be Jesus. Yes, welcome to Tuesday's Richie Allen Show, which is live on Fab Radio 2 here in Manchester. I'm in Salford. We're on triggerwarning.tv, the TuneIn radio app, and multiple other platforms as well. So we are. Yeah. Wow. It was a day for arguments, really. Your own, Richie. Well, not really. I'm not going to get into it. It was a day for arguments, heated interviews as we approach Election Day, which is a week on Thursday. Heated interviews. Mad afternoon, but here I am dealing with something I can't get into right now. So it's day... Have I done this right? I don't think I have. Hang on. Don't go anywhere. I've got to do this right. God knows I spent long enough preparing it this afternoon in the short time that I had to do it. It is day 2 of the COP25. And COP stands for Conference of the Parties. Of the Parties. Right? This is happening in Madrid now. This is climate change stuff now, right? Are you down with that, yeah? Are you down with the climate change stuff? So this is happening, and of course it's getting a lot of coverage on the UK televisual media and the radio as well. A lot of coverage, climate change, because we're all doomed. I'm like Ralph from Friday the 13th. You're doomed. We're all doomed, right? So this is... It's going on for a few days, and on the agenda today, the World Health Organization, we know them as the WHO, presented today, the WHO presented the global survey, Health and Climate Change. And the WHO said today that if the measures foreseen in the Paris Agreement were implemented, we could save more than 1 million deaths every year. Basically, the World Health Organization is calculating that the environmental risks linked to climate change actually represent more than 12 million deaths annually. But if we did what they said they'd do in the Paris Accord, we'd save 1 million people. Right. And today, the World Meteorological Organization is presenting, as I speak, its report on the state of the world's climate. And it says that all indicators point to a critical situation. Don't worry, I'm not going to dwell too much on that, because we're fecked. We're fecked, so we are. You wonder how much CO2 did they put into the atmosphere getting to Madrid, but that's been said before, so we'll leave that one alone. Anyway, Greta made it to Madrid, so she did get in there made it to Madrid. She was at last year's conference, which was in South America. I could be wrong. And we're going to be hearing more and more and more from Greta in the coming weeks, the coming months, and the coming years. Greta will be everywhere. If you think you're seeing a lot of Greta now, you've got no idea what's coming down the line. She'll be everywhere. So I've made a new theme tune that from this day forward, the Richie Allen Show will use the theme tune to precede any comments from Greta Thunberg, because we're going to be covering her a lot. I think she deserves a theme tune. A theme tune. Okay? I hope you like it. Let's have a bit of it then. A bit of Greta before we hear what she said, because she's been addressing the media in Madrid today.
They sweep their mess under the carpet for our generation to clean up and solve.
How dare you! You have stolen my dreams and my childhood with your empty words. People are suffering. People are dying. Entire ecosystems are collapsing. We are in the beginning of a mass extinction. How dare you!
Yes! It worked! That's the Greta theme, and we'll be using that from now on in and forevermore on the Richie Allen Radio Show. Do you like that? Do you want me to do it again? No, I know you don't. I know you don't. I won't do it again. Anyway, here's Greta. She's in Madrid today. Hola. And here she is addressing the world's assembled media. The doom mongers. Greta.
I, as well as the other climate activists, we will not stop. We will continue to do whatever we can. Continue to travel around and to...
Continue to travel around. The irony. But to be fair to Greta, she's been rowing herself around the Pacific and the Atlantic and the Indian Oceans, hasn't she, Greta? Yeah.
To put pressure on people in power and to make sure that they prioritize this.
Fuck off, love. That's what they should say, but they don't. There's Greta in Madrid. We'll leave Greta alone. She's made it to Madrid. I'm sure at some stage she'll be addressing the COP25 nations tomorrow. Now, there's been a massive row. I touched on this in the live stream that's on YouTube. In case you don't know, I do a live stream on YouTube at 9:30, Monday to Thursdays. And that's me and the stragglers, because there's about 50 people, hardcore nutcases, that join me on YouTube every morning. We get about 50 people if we're lucky. We've got about 50 nutcases, and we look at the front pages of the UK newspapers. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's absolutely terrible. Most often, it's absolutely dreadful. But it's 9:30 on YouTube, and I mentioned this morning. Remember when Jeremy Corbyn last week brandished a document, waved it around, you remember? And he said, the document, he said, in my hand shows the government notes on the future trade arrangement with the United Kingdom if we leave the European Union. I've got proof, says Jeremy. We are seeing proof in the documents that the NHS is up for grabs. Well, the right-wing media in the UK this morning, the Telegraph and the Daily Mail, said that it looks very much like Russia leaked the documents to Comrade Corbyn.
What kind of fuckery is this?
Yeah, he got them from Russia, Comrade Corbyn. What a load of monumental bollocks that is. He didn't get them from Russia. Anyway, but that's what they wanted to focus on, the media. The Shadow Employment Minister, Laura Pidcock, she's from the North East. Laura Pidcock who's a Labour, apparently she's being touted as a future leader. Of course, just because she's a woman, of course. Yeah. And she was on Sky with the ginger ninja herself, Kay Burley, this morning. And they had a bit of a row, so they did, about the origin of the documents that clearly show that the NHS will be discussed, access to the NHS, by big American companies when they do get down to talking trade. Rather than deal with that, though, Murdoch's press, in the guise this time of the ginger ninja, Kay Burley, well, they wanted to go on the attack about, well, Ruskies and leaking the documents to the Labour Party. This is good.
And my question to you is, in order to establish the veracity of these documents, we need to know where they come from.
These are official government documents. We know that is true, don't we? Nobody has refuted that. These are official government documents. So you can continue down the line of questioning about where they come from. I've already answered that. I'm not privy to that information.
No, you haven't.
These are
you haven't. I'm sure, given that you are a shadow secretary of state, you must, or shadow minister at least, you should have asked where these documents are coming from. The reason that you don't want to answer this question is because two of our national newspapers today are saying they are leaked from Russia. We're just asking you whether that's true or not. Okay, let me put it in a different way. If they are,
shut up, Burley, and let her answer the question.
Different way. If they are, how would you feel about it?
I was asked on this programme to talk about our huge transformative programme for employment rights. We spent about a minute on that. I don't know if it was longer, but it certainly wasn't long. And then we are talking about a huge fundamental issue about the NHS, about whose hands can it be trusted in, about whether there is privatisation. These are government documents. Nobody has denied that, have they?
Is the NHS not important to Labour?
Burley is vile. Pidcock quite rightly says to Burley, you invited me on the programme under false pretences. Your producers said, your producers phoned me and said, we'd like you to talk about Labour's employment plans. It's reforms for employment, for the minimum wage and the living wage and all the rest of it, the 4-day week. That's why I was invited on. You gave me less than a minute, or maybe just more than a minute on that, and now you're trying to Shanghai me with this notion that Russia gave us the documents. Burley waffles on a bit, and then Pidcock challenges her by saying to her, nobody's disputing the veracity of the documents. So what's the problem? And Burley starts off then with this, is the Labour not important? Is the NHS not important to Labour? This is typical of, well, one of Murdoch's minions.
Do you not want to talk about the NHS today?
It is what is being brought up on the doors time after time after time. And what I can say is that I know under a Conservative government we have had rapid privatisation. There are no safeguards in a future trade agreement to say that the NHS is not on the table. Do members of the public want to know that when Donald Trump comes here? Do they want to know that it's safe, that the NHS is not on the table, that it won't be open to huge corporations and free trade agreement? They absolutely do. And these documents are deeply concerning. And we should be questioning the content of those, not by how the Labour Party got them. These are official government documents.
They're official government documents. They are not disputed. Nobody disputes the documents are genuine. What does Burley say?
They're from Russia, aren't you? And you don't want to say, do you?
They're from Russia, aren't you? And you don't want to say, says the beautifully eloquent Kay Burley, just in case you missed that.
They're from Russia, aren't you? And you don't want to say, do you?
She's vile, Burley. What does Pidcock say?
Honestly, this is absolutely ridiculous.
She wants to knock her out. She wants to swear, but she's on national television at 7 o'clock in the morning, so she's got to be careful.
I am telling you, these are official government documents that the Labour Party held up.
In order to do that, as a journalist, as a journalist, we need to establish the source of documents to establish their veracity.
I don't give a shit if Rosemary West got the documents from whatever prison Rosemary West is rotting in. I couldn't give a shit if it was Jeffrey Dahmer who gave us the documents. The fact is, the documents clearly demonstrate that which we have been claiming forevermore. That these fuckers want to sell off whatever is left of the NHSK, is what I would have said if I was Laura Pidcock. But I've never been accused of being overly diplomatic, maybe.
They may be Russian leaked, if I may. They may be, if I may, they may be Russian leaked documents, which is absolutely fine if they are true and accurate. In order to establish that, we need to know the source. Why is that so difficult to do?
Maybe she doesn't know.
I'm saying these are government documents. Why is that so hard?
Well, how do you know they are?
These are reports.
How do you know?
Burley has got to be as thick as pig shit. And if you've ever scooped pig shit out of a pig pen, and I did once, it's fairly thick. And Kay is up there. It's been over a week now since Cat Weasel was running around a platform waving the fucking documents, Kay. Not only has the Conservative Party declined to deny the authenticity of the documents, but they're positively fucking defending them. What do you mean, how do we know they're authentic? You've had some of the Tories on Sky News in the last few days defending the things. You daft ginger muppet. Right. Oh, Pidcock. I'm going to find Laura Pidcock and give her a few lessons on how to deal with the media, particularly a hostile media.
That have taken place, and we've held them
How do you
up.
know?
Listen, if you feel like there is no line of questioning on whether the NHS is up for sale in free trade agreements, then absolutely fine. But
how do you know these are official government documents?
Because the government is admitting they are genuine. I don't know why Pidcock doesn't say that, actually. She's had ample opportunity to say, well, they've accepted the documents are genuine, Kay. That's why. So I don't care whether Russia put them on the web, on Reddit. I think they ended up on Reddit. I couldn't give an arse, Kay, I would say. I'd rather deal with the content of the documents. If you don't mind, you ginger.
I think this is an absolute massive distraction.
Indeed.
From the fundamental issue, which is that the NHS, our precious NHS, is not safe in the hands of a Tory government.
It's not safe in your hands either, I would say to Laura Pidcock, because Cat Weasel is going to borrow to fund it. And he's not going to do anything about NHS trusts spending hundreds of millions of pounds of taxpayers' money with private corporations who procure contracts, right, to run various aspects of the NHS. So I would take her on. But to be fair to her, she's fairly green, this woman. Very idealistic. And that's not a bad thing. But she doesn't have a clue that the recent expedited privatisation of the NHS began under war criminal, satanic mass murderer Tony Blair. But that's for another day. We're dealing with these documents and their relevance right now in 2019.
Because they are very comfortable
these are official government
Burley.
documents.
Privatisation.
How do you know they're official government documents if you don't know the source?
Listen, nobody has denied that they are official government documents. The government haven't denied that.
I'm asking you how you know that they are if you don't know what the source is, because you do know what the source is, don't you? You just don't want to say it today on the programme.
Neither parties have denied that these are official government documents and that these talks have taken place. A series of talks have taken place. And you can keep talking about this, but the fundamental question that you don't seem interested in is whether or not our NHS is up for sale. In the next general election is going to set the policy direction for the next 50 years. People are asking me on the doorsteps, paramedics, doctors, GPs, nurses, what would happen to our NHS in a free trade agreement? What is the future of our NHS? We have a crucial document here telling us that there is a
sadly, you can't tell me what the source is, and I'm afraid we are out of time. We're going to have to leave it there. Come in the studio, we'll chat some more. Thanks a lot. You're watching Kay at breakfast.
Oh, I'm sure she'd love to get in the studio, Kay. I'd love that. I believe war criminal scumbag Tony Blair's spin doctor Alastair Campbell was on Good Morning Britain this morning, and he put it to Piers Morgan, the presenter, co-presenter of GMB, Alastair Campbell, despicable, disgusting, absolute vermin of a man, was on, and he challenged Piers Morgan to a fight for charity. I'd love to see Laura Pidcock and Kay Burley in bikinis, like that mud wrestling scene from Stripes with Bill Murray. Do you remember that? Would you love to see Kay Burley in a mud wrestling environment with Laura Pidcock and maybe Rebecca Long Bailey? They could do a tag team maybe. Who else would we get in there? Diane Abbott. We could do a Royal Rumble. Let's get 10 women in there. Stella Creasy, when she gives birth to her baby. She might have done that by now. Let's have a mud wrestling extravaganza. Fandabi dozy. Madness. Birdie's a real beauty. Now, Faisal Islam used to be the political editor of Sky News. Faisal. We have a Faisal, don't we, who listens to us and who occasionally pops on to the programme on the phone-ins, always with something interesting to say. Faisal Islam is now the BBC Economics editor, and he tweeted a video today, and I'm glad he did. Good journalism, Faisal. Back in January this year, now prick your ears right up, prick them up, I said. You over there, listen carefully, this is very important. Back in January this year, farmer representatives addressed US trade negotiators in DC and told them what pharma would like in any future trade arrangement between the UK and the US. So this is pharma. I've got to tell you again, I know you're not stupid, I know you're not, but there's always one who's not listening to the context and doesn't understand the importance. Listen now. US trade negotiators, the actual men and women that do the negotiating, were in a room, and lobbyists from pharma and other industries were telling them, listen, this is what we'd want from the UK, right? So here's pharma talking to the negotiators. I know, I'm driving you mad now. And what they say is very interesting. Back in January, thank you, Faisal Islam.
From the perspective of our industry, U.S. negotiations with the UK should address the following.
Listen up.
First, negotiations should build on common ground to ensure transparency and due process for approving, pricing, and reimbursing pharmaceuticals. Approving,
pricing, and reimbursing US pharmaceutical companies. Approving the drugs. We should have transparency on how to approve the drugs, on pricing them, and on how to reimburse US pharmaceutical companies. Why? What's he building up to?
In the UK, the government is the primary payer for medicines and, in fact, dictates prices.
Aha. So in the UK, we have a free at the point of entry health service. The government, through taxation, pays for the medicine it buys, and therefore it dictates the prices. Because, obviously, the government says, we'll buy it from you, Mr. A, if you'll give it to us cheaper than Mrs. B. That's how it works, right? The Department of Health says, we need a whole load of diazepam. Where do we get it from? Well, Mrs. A sells it cheaper than Mrs. B, right? We'll get it from Mrs. A. So Big Pharma in America, they don't like that. So what did they propose?
This dominant position
often
results in the UK failing to appropriately recognize the value of innovation in its pricing and reimbursement systems.
Aha, so the UK fails to appropriately recognise the value of innovation. Listen to this arsehole again. Listen to this.
Often results in the UK failing to appropriately recognise the value of innovation in its pricing and reimbursement systems.
Ah, so the UK just basically doesn't have any respect for the innovators in US big pharma companies, and we don't properly pay them and respect their genius, and that's not good. And we do that because we have the dominant position, because we are the buyer. Not just we are the buyer, but we spend so much that we can dictate the prices. Just listen to that again now. This is back in January. This is back up 2, 3, 4 octaves, because it's important.
This dominant position often results in the UK failing to appropriately recognise the value of innovation in its pricing and reimbursement systems, and instead engage in actions that distort markets and artificially depress prices.
Oh, we artificially depress prices and we distort markets. What a shower of bastards we are. I mean, who does that? Who fucking shops around? Who fucking shops around? Where's the future, Mrs. Allen? Are you shopping around? Fucking don't do it again. It's absolutely out of order. You're distorting the market. You're fucking skewing the prices. These people are lunatics, right? Imagine that. Imagine that. A country is buying medicine, so we tell people, yeah, we'll buy it from you. I think we must have David Jason heading up the negotiations when we're buying medicine, by the sounds of it. Old Del Boy, doing a good job there. Doing such a good job, it's pissing off Big Pharma. All right, what else does he say?
With these concerns in mind, Pharma welcomes the administration's continued focus on the problem of advanced economies undervaluing innovative medicines. The negotiations thus provide
I could punch this guy in the face quite easily.
Continued focus on the problem of advanced economies undervaluing innovative medicines.
Undervaluing innovative medicines, advanced economies. It's not good.
The negotiations thus provide an important opportunity, consistent with TPA, to ensure government regulatory reimbursement regimes are transparent, non-discriminatory, and provide procedural fairness and full market access for U.S. products.
Full market access for U.S. products. Oh, yeah.
Non-discriminatory and provide procedural fairness and full market access for U.S. products.
There you go. Oh, Faisal Islam, I could kiss you today.
Which includes the setting of reimbursement amount on
reimbursement amounts. Let's set those.
Competitive market-derived pricing or an equivalent process, such as one that appropriately recognizes the value of an innovative product.
Oh, yes. Love that guy.
What kind of fuckery are you?
So the wonderful Neil Saunders, mindcontrol.com, on the Richie Allen Show last night said, if any future trade agreement is reached between the UK and the US, medicines and the price of procuring medicines will rise exponentially. Neil Saunders. Let's hear it for Neil Saunders. Yeah, because he was right, of course. Oh, be Jesus. He was right. And just to finish on the whole Big Pharma thing, this morning on BBC Radio 4, the Foreign Secretary Dominic Raab, he's a Conservative too, he was done up like a kipper by Nick Robinson. Dominic Raab is doing what every other Conservative Party person is doing today. They are lying through their sphincters, and they are saying that the NHS is not on the table, nor is it in danger of being privatised, nor will prices grow up. This is just Comrade Corbyn telling lies. But Nick Robinson, in a bit of brilliant presenting, reminds Dominic Raab that Raab co-authored a paper only a few years ago, a paper that recommended privatising UK hospitals. Wow.
From the perspective of our industry, U.S. negotiations...
Do it right, Richie. Played the wrong clip there, didn't I? After that build-up as well. Raab, Tory, Foreign Secretary, on with Nick Robinson, saying that it's a pack of lies, that the NHS will be privatised. Robinson shanghais him and says, you co-wrote a paper, dear boy, a few years back that recommended privatising UK hospitals. Let's try it again.
That's a ludicrous assertion, and the reality is
true? It's not even a ludicrous assertion because he did write the paper.
True or not?
No,
you wrote that
true.
pamphlet.
Well, you've picked probably a snippet from a pamphlet written a long time ago, but I can tell you categorically, I've never advocated privatisation of the NHS.
He's floundering.
Well, it also said the NHS should take advantage of the extra efficiencies private companies can provide. It was called After the Coalition, and you were one of the authors.
Yes, I co-authored with, I think there were 5 of us in total. Look, when you go into your average hospital, you see a Costa coffee there, you see a florist there. Is anyone seriously suggesting that the nurses, the doctors, the civil servants in the Department of Health should be running those services? That's wholesale different from talking about clinical services. We're absolutely clear. The NHS is not going to be privatised. The big expansion of private companies in the NHS took place under the last Labour government when the current Shadow Health Secretary, John Ashworth, was advising on PFI projects.
Sorry to remind you of it, the pamphlet talked about hospitals being run by private companies. It didn't talk about coffee shops and florists. It said hospitals, and your name was on it.
Well, certainly wasn't anything I wrote, and it's certainly nothing I advocate.
What a lying bastard! I can't believe he had the gall to lie like that. I mean, this is absolutely disgusting. Listen to what Robinson says to him there. I mean, this is... talk about lying and being caught lying through your teeth.
Hospitals being run by private
projects.
Sorry to remind you of it, the pamphlet talked about hospitals being run by private companies. It didn't talk about coffee shops and florists. It said hospitals, and your name was on it.
Well, certainly wasn't anything I wrote, and it's certainly nothing I advocate.
He just admitted a minute ago that he did write it. I mean, what a shit show that is by Dominic Raab. They really are the nasty party. Look, I'm not being a hypocrite here. None of them are any good. You know, ultimately none of them. I despise them all equally. But these are wretched liars, these Conservative Party stalwarts, these big Conservative Party names in 2019. Just shameless liars, going on national radio and just denying that you suggested private companies take over hospitals. And then he tried to say, oh, I really meant the coffee shops. Dominic, you lousy bastard, huh? Where are we going next, eh? Where are we going next? It's exactly... Oh, we've been on air half an hour. I can't believe it. It's exactly 5:45. This is the Richie Allen radio show. A little bit later than advertised today, but that's okay. We don't mind. We'll get on with it. We'll improvise, we'll adapt, and we'll overcome. My name is Richie Allen, by the way. When we come back, we'll reflect briefly on the Panorama show last night, which featured an extended conversation with Virginia Roberts-Giuffre. And we've lots more to talk about besides. Nothing like your Richie Allen show. Music from the Cult right here. Right, music from the Cult on the Richie Allen radio show. The time 11.5 minutes to the top of the hour. Hi to Ruth in Australia. How you doing, Ruth? Nice to hear from you. It's very, very early in the wee hours of Wednesday morning where Ruth is. Hope you're well, Ruth. Nice to hear from you again. Hi to William in Scotland, to David Stanford, and to David Stewart Cole. How you doing, David? I'm not saying I'm the best radio presenter in the UK, says David, but I am in the top one, yeah. I jest about stuff like that. When I first started out, very competitive I was. And I used to be, very concerned about ratings and, letters and stuff like that. And very concerned about being the best. And of course, it's a nonsense. Nobody is the best, really. It's a subjective thing, isn't it? It's like any medium. Everything you listen to, everything you watch or you listen to, everything that you don't think is very good, will have lots of people who think, well, in fact, it is very good. And that's how it is. So you don't get bogged down anymore. Experienced broadcasters don't care, really. You don't measure yourself against anybody else. You don't do that. What I do measure is the quality of the output in terms of the sound, the sonic quality, darling. I'm very, very jealous of that little title, which I've given myself, maybe unfairly. We are obviously there isn't another program, independent program like this anywhere on the continent that has the production values this one has. That's a different thing. That's not basically talking about, your own, what you bring to the table as a presenter. That's for other people to say, not for me to say. You have some good days and some bad days on the radio, don't you? Hi to Spiro, by the way. How you doing, Spiro? Lovely to hear from you, pal. About time we heard from you again on this programme. And to Paul Alawi, who's listening in as well. Let's move on fairly swiftly. I don't know how long more I'll be on, by the way. I might get to about 6:15. I've no idea. I'm glad I did get on today because, well, you know the way it is. Now, Panorama last night then, Prince Andrew's accuser, Virginia Giuffre, told Panorama last night that she felt ashamed after she had sex with the Duke of York when she was a teenager. And she said powerful people were her chains. She was trafficked, she says, by Jeffrey Epstein, the billionaire financier who's dead now, of course, and she was forced to have sex with Andrew in 2001. He continues to deny that he had any form of sexual contact or any relationship with Giuffre, who was known as Virginia Roberts back then. Here's just a little, because I know many of you have seen this today or last night, so just a little snippet of her describing one encounter with Andrew, and it's not very pleasant.
So Andrew drives in the other car. He's not with us. He's with the security guards. And in the car, Ghislaine tells me that I have to do for Andrew what I do for Jeffrey. And that made me sick. I just didn't expect it from royalty. Well, there was a bath, and it started there, and then it led into the bedroom, and it didn't last very long, the whole entire procedure. It was disgusting. He wasn't mean or anything, but he got up and he said thanks and walked out, and I sat there in bed just horrified and ashamed and felt dirty, and I had to get up and go have a shower, and it was a wicked time in my life. It was a really scary time in my life.
Yeah. The programme was I don't mean to be dismissive of what she said there. It's fairly harrowing. The programme was an hour long, and it was fairly well put together by the BBC. If you're in the UK, BBC iPlayer. I think if you're outside the UK, you'll find it pretty easy to get it online. Now, her father is a man called Sky Roberts, and he was on Good Morning Britain today. That's a breakfast magazine programme on ITV. He was live on the programme from Florida, so he was up very early, or he stayed up very late. Is he worried about his... No, before we get to that, let's just hear a little bit of what he said to Piers Morgan and what's the... God, this is misogynistic, isn't it? Susanna Reid, of course. Yeah, my mind is gone. I've had so much going on today. So here's Sky Roberts, the father of Virginia Roberts Giuffre, speaking on GMB today.
Well, my feelings toward Prince Andrew is that he knows the truth and what he really did. I mean, I've seen the interviews, him denying everything, but apparently he's not telling the truth, and I think most of Britain knows that. I feel so sorry for my daughter, for everything she's went through. At the time that she was going through it, I had no idea, but... I love my daughter very much, and, she's really brave to be going through all this and to come up against these powerful people.
It must be very hard as a father to hear these allegations, to hear her talk about what she was forced to do, and to see her in tears as she talks about it. What impact has it had on you, and what message would you like to give to your daughter?
Well, I just really like to just tell her to stay strong and stay safe, to begin with, because these are powerful people that she's dealing with. And, it's not just Prince Andrew, it's several other people, too, that, she has allegations against, but, I know she's telling the truth. My daughter is, she's a good girl. She really is. I mean, like I say, I wish I'd have known all this stuff was going on. I mean, but I didn't. As a parent, you kind of ask the question, how do you not know that your children are doing this? But she's a very good actress, when she would come home from these trips, she said nothing about it, and it must have been killing her inside. But for powerful people like that, they can threaten a young girl like that. These girls are young. They really don't know that, what's going on with these powerful people and what they can actually do. If they're threatening their mother and father and brothers or whatever with, we're going to take them out or whatever, if you say anything, then, they don't say anything. I'm just glad she's out of it and she's fighting back.
Yeah, he came across as a nice man. He was asked, is he worried about his daughter now?
To know now what I know now about Jeffrey Epstein and Miss Maxwell and several others that, I'm sure that's why Jeffrey Epstein is not alive right now, is because somebody didn't want to see his books or whatever he's got on everybody. I know he didn't kill himself, that had to be, somebody from above that, came and got him and, took him out. But yeah, I'm furious with the guy. I really, I'd like to say really pissed off, at the whole thing now. And if there was any way I could change it, I would.
Do you fear for Virginia's safety?
Yes, I do. I feel for Virginia's safety. There's still a lot of powerful people that's alive now that, but she's just telling the truth. She's letting the world know who these people are and what they're doing. And these people have families too. And that's why they're denying, because they do have families and they have children. But they shouldn't be preying on young girls, some of these girls are 15 years old.
Yeah, that was Sky Roberts there, Virginia's father, speaking to GMB this morning. I wouldn't imagine Virginia Roberts is in any immediate danger now, because she's given affidavits, hasn't she? She's basically testified as to what happened to her and what she can speak to. And she's put a lot on the record, if not everything, already. I would imagine Ghislaine Maxwell, the pimp, if she resurfaces anywhere, she'll be next on the hit parade. And I don't say that for a laugh or flippantly. That's the way these people operate. Maxwell will know a lot, and she will certainly know the names of wealthy and connected men and women that were coming to Epstein's parties, where young girls who were under the age of consent were being brought for sex. She'll know that. So there you are. Coming up for a minute and a half to the top of the hour to 6 o'clock. This is the Richie Allen Show for Tuesday. Got some interesting guests lined up for tomorrow and Wednesday this week. It's going to be an interesting rest of the week as well. Got somebody who's at 99% confirmed with me. He's got an amazing story to tell. So I don't want to say who it is just yet. I'm hoping it'll be confirmed a little bit later on today. And I'll let you know overnight. Don't forget the newspaper review programme airs at 9:30 on youtube.com. That's youtube.com/Richie Allen Show. 9:30 between 9:30 and 10:15 Monday to Thursday. All right. Where are we going next then? Where are we going next today? Well, the anti-Semitism thing, Jeremy Corbyn is still being challenged on anti-Semitism. He was on ITV's This Morning show earlier. Does that begin at 10 a.m. or 10:30 a.m., where he was challenged by that heavyweight political interviewer, Philip Schofield. Yeah, and Gordon the Gopher. And they took Corbyn to task for not apologising to the country's Jewish folk. How did it go?
So here is your opportunity now to apologise to the Jewish community for any anti-Semitism by Labour members.
Our party can I make it clear?
Just say sorry.
No, wait a minute. I and our party...
No, just say sorry.
Come on, let me say... Can I say something?
Well,
our party...
I want you to say sorry.
And our party and me...
Yeah.
...do not accept anti-Semitism in any form.
So are you sorry for anything that's happened?
Obviously, I'm very sorry for everything that's happened.
Hallelujah! 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 Did he say what I think he just said there, Jeremy? Did he actually... Go on, Jessa. Did he actually say sorry?
Anti-Semitism in any form.
So are you sorry for anything that's happened?
Obviously, I'm very sorry for everything that's happened.
Now fucking leave him alone. Leave him alone, be Jesus. He said he's sorry. And he meant it as well, Jeremy Corbyn. Oh, if only Jeremy had a spine, eh? If only Jeremy wasn't a jellyfish. He would have said to Philip Schofield, Philip, which particular Jews would you like me to apologise to? What do you mean? Well, I'll tell you what I mean, Philip, and Gordon the Gopher there. There are lots and lots and lots of Jews, friends of mine and friends of the Labour Party, who do not believe I've got anything to apologise for. So which Jews would you like me to apologise to, and which Jews do I need to avoid apologising to? Because they don't want an apology. You see? Yeah. If only Jeremy would grow a spine. Somebody get Jeremy a spine for Christmas. I don't know how much they cost. Oh, and breathe. Hallelujah. Now, something has been bugging me. I tell you what. Forget it. We're going to have a tune. After the tune, I'll tell you what's been bugging me. All right? Gary Barlow. And Celia there was expecting a little bit of Christmas music. Not till December 23rd, Celia. David Stanford says, a spine, Jeremy's body would reject it. Yeah. Charlotte says, I'll get Jeremy a spine. I have him in the Secret Santa. Get him a spine. God damn it. Give him guts. Yeah. Natalie thinks that sounds like Mumford and Sons. Maybe. It's a nice tune, though. I like that bit of Gary. I like a bit of Gary Barlow. Saw him live at the Apollo, O2 Apollo in Manchester. Very near the stage. It was just him and his band. Not Take That, just him and the band. And he was brilliant. The oft-mentioned Future Misses and myself were there. And he was absolutely amazing. Very talented lad, very funny. And lovely rapport with the audience. and some great pop songs, cheesy though they may be. Patricia tweets, I heard part of the discussion about Epstein. It is strange to me that Prince Andrew tries to distance himself from Epstein, but admits freely that he is or was friends with Ghislaine Maxwell, who was the procurer for Epstein. Good point, Patricia. Very, very good point. Hey, before we talk about that thing that was bugging me, do you want to hear a bit more from Greta? Do you want to hear the Greta theme again? Go on. Just before we hear a bit more from Greta. I don't think I have a sound bite, but the news has just flashed up a news flash about something that Greta has just said. Greta has just said something. And we have made a pact, haven't we? We've said that once Greta says something, and if we're going to report on it, we have to use the new Greta theme. And that's just the way it is. So, I'm delighted that I was able to, to kind of wrangle or finagle another reason, another opportunity to play the Greta theme. I do. Right, so Greta's been speaking. We heard from her earlier on when she arrived at the COP25 in Madrid, but she's just been saying more stuff to assembled journalists, and I think we should hear the more stuff that she's had to say. But before that, got to hear the Greta theme again. Yes. Get in.
They sweep their mess under the carpet for our generation to clean up and solve.
How dare you! You have stolen my dreams and my childhood with your empty words. People are suffering. People are dying. Entire ecosystems are collapsing. We are in the beginning of a mass extinction. How dare you!
Yes.
You junkies bastards, yeah. You junkies bastards, yeah.
I know I am. Anyway, what's Greta been saying? We don't have a soundbite for it, but she's been saying, this is all true now, she has been telling the media this afternoon that adults should stop making young people angry over global warming. I swear to God, people are underestimating the force of angry kids. That is a direct quotation. Adults should stop making young people angry. People are underestimating the force of angry children.
Get off from my moor, you mischievous weans.
Actually, we'd prefer to stay. You're thinking about hurting us.
Now you're thinking, how did they know what I was thinking?
Now you're thinking, I hope that's shepherd's pie in my knickers.
Right, you little blighters, we've had quite enough of your evil mischief.
But you're the one who's been bad. You've been sneaking puddings.
But, how did you know?
We know all your secrets.
And you pilfered the poor box.
And Doctor, we know that you and the boot black have been rogering the fishwife in the crop.
Rogering the fishwife. I love that scene.
We know that you and the boot black have been rogering the fishwife in the crumpet shop.
Yeah, kids are bastards, all right. Children are bastards. Every one of them. Now, moving on to what I was going to talk about briefly. And it's about the final thing I've got lined up for you today. It's coming up for 10 minutes past 6. This is the Richie Allen Show. Your Richie Allen Show. Of course, it's broadcasting live on Fab Radio 2 here in the great city of Manchester, although I'm in Salford. We're on triggerwarning.tv, TuneIn Radio, and multiple other platforms as well. I wanted to talk about balance. Do you know what I'm going to do now? I'm going to be a right bastard. I am. I'm going to try and be professional just for a minute. I should have done this at the top of the hour, but I didn't. We're going to have to get the headlines. I'm contractually obliged. I'm not really contractually obliged at all, of course, to get the news every now and then, at least the mainstream news. So let's quickly grab the headlines from FSN. While we do that, have a think, and when I come back, we will talk about balance in the media, and you don't want to miss that. It's very interesting. All right, so we're off to FSN then for the headlines. Back after that.
From Feature Story News in London, I'm Benji Hire.
Donald Trump has defended the role of NATO, claiming that it serves a great purpose. The US president is in the UK on a 3-day visit for the NATO summit. The French finance minister has hit back over tariffs threatened by the United States. And in Australia, holding your cell phone whilst driving could land you with a hefty fine due to what's believed to be the world's first phone detection cameras near schools.
Thanks very much, Ollie. Not Ollie, Benji. It's Benji today. Cheers, Benji. Right, I've got 3 or 4 tweets to read, and I will read them, and then we'll talk about balance in the media. And that's very important. Before that, though, a quick message.
Renowned healer Mark Bayersky travels the world to find the most unique and powerful crystals for self-healing. Since the ancient times, crystals have been used as healing tools. They hold a natural healing vibration and are highly charged in positive energy. Mark teaches how to channel the universal energy and transfer it to the crystal to activate its healing power. Each crystal is used for its unique ability to target a different physical or emotional challenge. Mark Bayersky is an author, healer, speaker, and founder of the Pure Energy Healing Academy. He shares powerful messages of inspiration and healing on his daily YouTube videos, reaching millions worldwide. Mark's crystals, healing oils, and incense sticks are most sought after by other healers. His collection is available online at www.markbayersky.com. His work is presented through Lemon House, a company that creates and curates consciously made gifts.
Yes, we love Mark Bayersky, top man. Hope to have Mark on again very early in the new year. One of the nicest blokes I've met on my journey through the independent media. By the way, Ruth in Australia, who's up at crack at dawn, says, Richie, don't forget Andrew's brother Charles. Very special connection to Jimmy Savile. There are 66 cases of royalty connected to pedophilia, says Ruth. Let's not forget the 10 missing children who Prince Philip and the Queen were last to see. That, of course, British Columbia, several decades ago, and I've talked about that on this programme. Thanks, Ruth. Good to hear from you again today. I will get to this balance thing I want to talk about. David the Cartoon Drunk says, didn't Barlow once say his only ambition as a kid was to be famous? Not a good musician, nothing else, he just wanted to be famous. What a conceited, self-centred twat he is, says David. Well, I'll tell you what, David. Fair enough, first of all. He doesn't come across like that. I went to see Take That in 1995. Why? Why, Richie? Why? Because I escorted my younger sister and several of her friends to the Point Depot, as it was then in Dublin, to see Take That when they were touring just before Robbie Williams decided to leave, and I was amazed at how good they were. 12 or 14 piece band, all of them singing. The pop songs were a bit cheesy, but they were very good, and they were written by Gary Barlow. I thought, Jesus, this guy's quite good. And I thought pretty nice. I saw Take That with the future Mrs. Allen at the Arena 2 years ago, and I saw Barlow on his own more recently, because we love gigs. You know, we don't have children, we don't, I don't smoke, she doesn't, and not heavy drinkers, you know, don't have a lot of disposable income, but what we do, we like to see live music. We'll watch anybody. And Barlow was brilliant, loads of personality. I didn't think he came across as being self-centred. But you know what, David, a lot of youngsters, you know, early 90s, a lot of that was going on, especially in Manchester. There was a lot of attitude up here, a lot of attitude. And being famous was the ambition. So I hear you. But I tend to like Gary Barlow, really. I like the lad. Susan says, the climate changes, we need to get over it. I know the British love discussing the weather, but did we have to infect the rest of the world, says Susan. Indeed. Right, let's move on. It is 6:15. And this, I'm going to do a very brief version of this, but it's something I think it's important anyway, for what it's worth. For ages, I hear a lot of noise, and my head is full of noise. Day in, day out, listen to news, radio, television, observing it, reading newspapers, noise. My head is full of it. It sometimes accounts for my sometimes irrational behaviour in my private life. By irrational, I mean there are times I don't hear stuff that's been said to me. There are times that I'm a bit erratic. There are times that I'm a bit grumpy. My head's full of noise. And something I've been hearing off and on for the last 2 years has been buzzing around my head is this new idea. And the right-wing media, which is nearly all the media these days, is promoting a new idea. And the idea is that there is no longer any need for balance. Now, don't laugh. Don't say it's always been the way, Richie. It has not always been the way. Yes, for a couple of decades now, increasingly, newspapers and radio and television stations have been hoovered up by some of the biggest companies in the world, Time Warner, General Electric. Yes, I know. But until recently, even those corporations, they were staffed by producers and editors who knew that they needed to get the other side. Not anymore. Okay? It's a new idea. No need for balance. Why? Because now it is being declared that certain matters are undisputed and that certain facts are irrefutable. So, in other words, we shouldn't endeavour to provide room for a different point of view anymore. No more. No need for it. No need for balance. I want you to listen to this. This is on youtube.com as part of a 2-hour interview. It is with a man called Joe Brawley. That will surprise some of my Irish listeners now. I can't believe Richie is talking about Joe Brawley. Joe Brawley is a Gaelic football commentator. I think he's a Derry man, is he? Is he a Derry man? I'm a hurling fan, you see. Big hurling fan. And I watch Gaelic football when it gets to the final. Dublin, of course, 5 in a row. But I don't ordinarily watch Gaelic football. But Joe Brawley, famous Irish sportsman and pundit, successful sportsman, has got an All-Ireland medal and a pundit. Radio Telefíséireann, RTE. Now this perked me up because I've been hearing this all the time. This is an idea whose time has come. We don't need for balance. So Brawley, you won't have heard of him if you're outside Ireland and you're not Irish. Irish sports guy, not a political commentator, but he's a solicitor or a barrister by trade. Okay? So he's interesting. So he takes an interest in geopolitical affairs. That's his grounding. You see, Irish sportsmen and women who play camogie and hurling and Gaelic football, they are amateur. They don't get paid. They get expenses. Yes, they play in stadia. 50, 60, 70, 80,000 people, punters, but they do not get paid. All the money goes back into the grassroots of the game. We're very proud of it in Ireland. The Gaelic Athletic Association, right? Right. So Joe Brawley, famous man. Get on with it, Richie. Christ, Richie, you go on and on. I know. Here he is, barrister by trade, talking about balance. You have to hear this to believe it. Where is it? Jesus. Yeah, I've got it. Perk up.
Well, you see, it's an irrational fear nowadays. You know, this balance is a big thing. Like, I'll give you a simple example. I know that guy James O'Brien in LBC, who's a great guy. He's written a book about how balance has paralysed progress in society. You know what I'm saying? Because you have got to give the loony exactly the same platform as you give a person who's logical. So you've got to give...
Hang on a second. You've got to give the loony the same platform as the person who's logical.
You know what I'm saying? Because you have got to give the loony exactly the same platform as you give a person who's logical. So you've got to give Boris Johnson, if you're in the BBC, you've got to say, right, regardless of how nonsensical it all is, and we all know that it is, you've got to say, well, that's what do you have to say about that to the other person, you see? And it's a disease of balance that eventually paralyses.
A disease of balance. Just to play that bit about Boris Johnson again. Boris Johnson is vile, right? He'd burn £50 notes in front of homeless people. He's sick. But he is an elected MP who happens to hold the office of UK Prime Minister. What Brawley is suggesting is quite extraordinary.
You've got to say, right, exactly the same platform as you give a person who's logical. So you've got to give Boris Johnson, if you're in the BBC, you've got to say, right, regardless of how nonsensical it all is, and we all know that it is, you've got to say, well, that's what do you have to say about that to the other person, you see? And it's a disease of balance that eventually paralyses real discourse. And it then becomes difficult to know, you know, what's true and what isn't true. We see that in American society very strongly.
Wow. So in Joe Brawley's ideal world, the BBC would be the national arbiter of what is true and isn't true. So no longer would the BBC or other broadcasting organisations be there to do several things. First of all, to hold the government, but also to hold the opposition parties to account. It is supposed to ask important questions on behalf of its licence payers to elected officials across the political spectrum. And it is supposed to do that in a totally impartial way, to leave aside forever its own opinions and feelings about these subjects. Now, I know that doesn't happen. We're not stupid. You're not stupid. I'm not stupid. I don't pretend it happens. But Brolly is saying, and this is a new idea, that that way no longer works. Because you've got to give Boris Johnson, and you know that he's talking nonsense, talking through his backside. You've got to give him a platform, says Brolly. And ultimately, that is resulting in people being confused and not knowing what is and what isn't true. I can't believe that a man with a legal mind would ever say, let alone think, anything like that. But I'm glad he's saying it. Not just him and others, so we can hear it. So we can hear him say it out loud. And it's everywhere at the moment. Joe Brolly. Balance. There's no need for balance. So presumably the BBC then gets to determine what the facts are in any story or in any event or in any global crisis or disaster or anything. The BBC gets to decide by itself what's right and what isn't right, and then invite those men and women on to affirm that which has been decided to be true. What Brolly is really saying is the public can no longer be trusted to use their own insight, their own life experience, their own intelligence to determine for themselves who's telling the truth and who isn't. Brolly would have you believe that the public doesn't know that Boris Johnson is a wild-haired, lying sack of human excrement. He mentioned James O'Brien, LBC. He's fascinated by James O'Brien, Brolly. And O'Brien is leading this in commercial media at the moment, this idea. This is James O'Brien from about a year ago. Now, there are many examples, not just of O'Brien, but of other news men and women suggesting this, that balance is killing them. We have to do away with balance. In other words, we won't do journalism anymore. We will just do commentary exclusively. Again, I hear you shouting at your phone or your laptop or your radio or whatever. I hear you shouting, oh, we don't have it anyway. Listen. I hear you. Listen to O'Brien, and he's talking about Brexit. And he's going to mention Chris Patten. Now, Chris Patten is a Conservative Party peer, which means he's a Lord, and he resides and presides in the House of Lords, Lord Patten. Now, he is a dyed-in-the-wool European Union champion. He's a Europhile, loves the European Union. And this guy is disgusted, Chris Patten is disgusted that we chose to leave, and he wants to reverse Brexit. Now, you're not going to hear from him, but you're going to hear James O'Brien refer to Chris Patten and then refer to Jacob Rees-Mogg. And as somebody who came up back in the mid to late 1990s, when I was lucky enough to be exposed to men and women whom I've mentioned before on the show, terrific journalists and editors and producers, I was blessed to meet those men and women and learn and glean from them, you know, through their experiences, the skills that I would need, you know, to go about kind of forging a career for myself. And I think back to what I was taught, and I listen to what James O'Brien says now, and I can't believe I'm in the same 30. This can't be in the same 30-year period. Listen to James O'Brien.
This, for me, is becoming a really urgent issue. You get on Chris Patton to...
An urgent issue. This is an urgent issue, he says. You get Chris Patton on, who hates Brexit, who loves the European Union. Listen now, listen.
This, for me, is becoming a really urgent issue. You get on Chris Patton to... If this was the BBC, you'd get Chris Patton on to simply state some facts. And then you'd have to invite Jacob Rees-Mogg on to tell you when the unicorns arrive.
Jesus Christ. Did you hear that? You did.
You get on Chris Patton to, if this was the BBC, you'd get Chris Patton on to simply state some facts. And then you'd have to invite Jacob Rees-Mogg on to tell you when the unicorns arrive. That is...
So we're lucky that we're not the BBC, says James O'Brien, who presents for a national commercial radio station. Because we can just get Chris Patton on, who's a Europhile, to give us some facts. But if we're at the BBC, we've then got to invite Jacob Rees-Mogg on. Mogg's an intelligent man, regardless of what you think of him. European Research Group. He's been committed his entire life to taking the United Kingdom out of the European Union. For whatever reason, that's another issue for another day. But he has eloquently, at times, Mogg, explained the constraints of the European Union and what membership of the European Union has meant for people in this country, in agriculture, in fishing. And James O'Brien, who's a useless sack of human excrement, who's a graduate from the London School of Economics, he's not a journalist, hasn't got a journalistic bone in his body. You know, people like me mop the floor with people like James O'Brien when it comes to conducting interviews, right? Here he is saying balance is killing us.
This, for me, is becoming a really urgent issue. You get on Chris Patton to, if this was the BBC, you'd get Chris Patton on to simply state some facts. And then you'd have to invite Jacob Rees-Mogg on to tell you when the unicorns arrive. That is now what the BBC mistakes for balance. You can see why we've done it commercially. It's kind of comforting fibs. Historically, a fantastic business. Uncomfortable truths. This is the real holy grail of commercial radio, is building a big audience while telling uncomfortable truths as opposed to comforting fibs. But the BBC is...
When did it become the remit of broadcasters to tell you the truth? Listen carefully now, don't jump down my throat. When did it become the remit of a broadcasting organisation to tell you the truth? It's not their job. Their job is to report on events honestly and as factually as they can, and then try to determine why those events have happened by speaking to those who were caught up in the events or who participated in the events. Not their job to tell you the truth. Never was. That's the enemy of impartiality, isn't it? This notion that it's our job to tell you the truth. No, it isn't. It's our job to try and uncover it by challenging the establishment, by challenging the pillars of the establishment, law and order, finance, corporations. It's our job to challenge them fairly and question them as you would like them to be questioned, and then you get to make your own mind up. But O'Brien is not happy with that anymore, and he's not the only one.
While telling uncomfortable truths as opposed to comforting fibs. But the BBC is now closer to where we are historically, so they bring on a guest to say, yeah, the Earth's flat, I believe, and they'll get just as much time and attention as the fellow on the other side with pictures taken in space showing that the Earth is round.
Of course, that's a lie, you see. The BBC has never given anybody who talks about flat Earth a platform, let alone equal time with somebody like Brian Cox or David Attenborough. He's equating Brexit and the merits or demerits of the European Union with flat Earth discussion, which is disingenuous to say the least. But both BBC and Sky and Global Media and Bauer Media, which between them own most of the radio stations in the country, have now said no more dissenting voices on climate change. There's no need for balance. It's over. We know the truth. The government has set up a new committee under Damien Collins. Well, it's not new, but it's newish. To decide how to deal with fake news. Politicians. Imagine, politicians taking control over what can and cannot be seen, and what is and what isn't factual. Crazy times, huh? Balance. No need for balance anymore. The disease of balance, said Joe Brawley, the Irish barrister and sports pundit. James O'Brien, balance is terrible. You can get Chris Patton on to give you some facts. Patton is a politician who's been in the back pocket of the European Union for most of his adult life. But he'll tell us the facts. But then, terribly, you're obliged to get Jacob Rees-Mogg on, who talks about unicorns. Dreadful stuff, folks. But it's an idea whose time has come, because it's being discussed all across broadcasting at the moment. Conferences around the country and around Europe, where political editors from radio and television stations, where managing directors of radio and television stations are discussing this very thing. This notion that we shouldn't have to give balance if we don't want to. They're challenging, you see, the establishment, not the establishment, but age-old and very good, I would say, regulations around broadcasting. Regulations which compel broadcasters to give right of reply to the other side, to give the opportunity to the dissenting voice to be heard. Broadcasting laws in Ireland, in the UK right here, in France, they're pretty much uniformed, and that's not a bad thing. They clearly say radio stations, television stations and newspapers shouldn't be the arbiter of what is and what isn't true, and that they must offer right of reply. Always. Unless it's impossible. Of course, I've had personal experience of it. I've had The Guardian and the Daily Mail label me as somebody who harbours racists and anti-Semites on this particular radio programme, and none of them picked up a telephone and phoned me or emailed me to say, right, we've just declared you to be a guy who exists just to get racists on the radio. What's your response to that? No. No phone call, no email. What they're trying to do, I could, if I wanted, complain to Ofcom, and my complaint would be upheld. Why haven't you done it? There's nothing in it for me. Couldn't be arsed. I don't care what the Daily Mail or the Guardian says about me or the Jewish Chronicle. I wipe my arse with that sort of nonsense. It's not even worthy of chip paper. Nothing in it for me. But what they want to do now, they want to change the paradigm, remove the regulations around broadcasting and regulations about printing, and basically have a free-for-all where they can obliterate balance, fair comment, right of reply, open forum. No. We're going to tell you how it is, and then we're going to get a man on or a woman on to back up what we've just told you and screw any notion or any idea that there is another point of view. There isn't. This is right. Everything else is wrong. 25 minutes to the top of the hour. Thanks for being with me today. I'm going to love you and leave you now. It's been a pretty packed old afternoon. Sorry for being a bit late, but we got on. Full show, of course, again tomorrow, Wednesday at 5 o'clock. Don't miss that. Before that, though, I'll join you tomorrow morning at 9:30, where we'll look through the morning's newspapers on YouTube, my YouTube channel, youtube.com/Richie Allen Show. Until tomorrow, look after yourselves and one another. I'm going to leave you with some Coldplay. Have a terrific Tuesday evening then. Until 9:30 on YouTube, bye from me.